Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking the sheer rhetorical brilliance of what is, honestly, one of the most intense and high-stakes ancient texts ever recorded. We're zooming in on a pivotal moment involving a royal family that has literally been robbed of their entire kingdom by deceitful enemies. They've been forced into this brutal, unyielding 13-year exile out in the woods. And one brother, the fierce warrior Bhima, well, he has simply had enough. Today we're going to break down the exact anatomy of Bhima's passionate argument to his eldest brother, the king, where he urges him to just abandon their pledge and declare war immediately.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to genuinely consider this scenario for a second. If you were completely stripped of your home, your wealth, and your honor, and the rules of the game were totally rigged by your enemies, would you patiently wait 13 years to legally reclaim what's yours, or would you fight today, knowing full well that following those rigged rules almost certainly guarantees your own destruction? This is the exact dilemma Bhima is forcing his brother to confront. He isn't just asking for a battle here. He's challenging the very logic of passive endurance.
Section 1, the clock is ticking.
Now, Bhima doesn't just walk in and start yelling about swords and chariots. He actually grounds his opening argument in something far more profound, an existential appeal. He really wants the king to realize the terrifying infinite nature of time, and he contrasts that against how incredibly fragile and short human life truly is. Just listen to this striking metaphor from the text. Bhima says, life is shortened every moment, even like a quantity of collyrium that is lessened each time a grain is taken up by the needle. Now, collyrium is an ancient eye cosmetic, and it's applied tiny grain by tiny grain. Bhima is philosophically reminding his brother that their lives are slowly, imperceptibly ticking away. If they just sit around in the woods and wait, they aren't achieving some high virtue. They're simply bringing themselves closer to death without any honor. Time is carrying everything before it like death itself, and they are completely wasting it.
13. That is the number of years they are supposed to wait. And Bhima argues that committing to this wait is a profoundly passive, incredibly dangerous choice. Seriously, how can any mortal man, who obviously doesn't know the future with absolute certainty, trust that he'll even be alive in 13 years? Bhima compares a mortal man to froth on the water, or an unstable, ripe fruit ready to fall from the tree at any second. To him, waiting 13 years for a kingdom is gambling with a life they simply don't have the luxury to lose.
Section 2, the warrior's true duty.
Having established that time is running out, Bhima pivots to his second angle. This is a direct, highly personal moral attack on his brother King Yudhishthira's uncharacteristic passivity and extreme kindliness. And this brilliantly illustrates his tactical use of shame. He says the king is a useless burden on the earth, like an incapacitated bull, and perisheth ingloriously. Bhima is purposefully using this harsh, agitating imagery to shake his brother awake. He's saying that a man who has the strength but lacks the courage to chastise his foes, well, he lives in vain. By calling the king an incapacitated bull, Bhima is trying to provoke that warrior spirit he feels his brother has buried under a misguided sense of virtue.
To further his point, Bhima draws a very stark contrast between two completely different societal roles. On one side, you have the Brahmana, priests who are kind, forgiving, and tranquil. But on the other side, you have their actual class, the Kshatriya, the warrior kings. According to the ancient laws Bhima references, the duties of kings are actually fraught with crookedness, unfairness, and fighting. Bhima asks his brother point blank, "Thou art kind like a Brahmana. How hast thou been born in the Kshatriya order?" He's essentially telling the king, look, you are playing the totally wrong role in this epic drama. Bhima then delivers another crushing comparison. He notes that the king acts like a huge snake that is destitute of motion. He argues that the king's rigid, unmoving adherence to this vow is frankly foolish. He compares his brother's intellect to that of an ignorant person who has memorized all the sacred texts without actually understanding their practical sense. The king has all this immense power, intelligence, and prowess, yet he sits there completely paralyzed, mistaking inaction for righteousness.
Section 3, the fire of restraint.
This is where Bhima really escalates the emotional intensity of his argument. He moves from duty and time to the sheer psychological torture of holding back their natural instincts as warriors. You can almost feel the heat radiating off this quote. Bhima expresses a visceral, burning frustration, telling his brother that the suppression of his rightful wrath prevents him from sleeping day or night. He is entirely consumed by the injustice they've suffered. For Bhima, the forced tranquility of their woodland exile isn't peaceful at all. It's a raging internal inferno that is slowly destroying him from the inside out.
And the thing is, he doesn't just speak for himself. Bhima points out the silent sufferers of their family.
He describes their brother Vibitsu, the foremost archer, forced to repress his wrath like a mighty elephant, living caged up like a lion in a den. He points to the younger twins, Nakula and Sahadeva, who stayed dumb purely out of a desire to please the king. And he gestures to their old mother Kunti and the princess Draupadi, who are actively burning with grief. Bhima boldly claims to be the only one willing to step up and speak the painful truth that they all secretly feel. They all eagerly wish for battle.
Section 4. You cannot hide the sun.
Having covered the existential, the moral, and the emotional, Bhima moves to a purely practical appeal. He begins detailing the sheer logistical absurdity of the vow they made. The vow specifically requires them to live completely unknown and unrecognized by the world for a portion of their exile. So, the crucial point is, he mocks the very idea of their disguise. He says that trying to hide them is like trying to conceal the Himavat mountains by means of a handful of grass. It's a highly vivid, slightly comical metaphor that highlights the absolute impossibility of their situation. I mean, you cannot hide legendary towering figures behind a flimsy technicality.
And let's consider exactly why they are too famous to hide. Jishnu is described as a large tree or the mythical elephant of Indra. The twins are like a couple of young lions. Their wife, the princess, is renowned over all the world. And Bhima himself, he's been famous since his boyhood. Bhima is pleading with his brother to see reason here. Expecting this specific family to just blend into the background is as impossible as expecting the sun to course through the sky completely unknown to men.
And if their own massive fame wasn't enough to expose them, Bhima reminds the king of the very real external threats. The words are literally crawling with spies in disguise sent by the bad son of Dhritarashtra. Furthermore, there are exiled kings roaming about who still hold major grudges against them from past conquests. Discovery isn't just a remote possibility, it's inevitable. And if they are discovered, a great danger will overtake them and they are going to lose everything all over again.
Section 5. The 13-month loophole.
Okay, this is where Bhima reveals his final, desperate, and highly creative legal rationalization to go to war immediately. He basically transitions from a warrior to a slick lawyer here, trying to beat his brother at his own game of rules and technicalities. Walk through Bhima's ridiculous but strategic timeline with me. They pledged 13 years of exile, right? Well, Bhima points out that they have currently lived in the woods for a full 13 months. He then boldly claims that, according to the wise, these 13 months should simply be regarded as 13 years due to their length and suffering. Therefore, in Bhima's mind, they have technically fulfilled the pledge.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Bhima masterfully twists ancient religious precedents to justify immediate bloodshed. He uses an analogy from ancient rituals, stating that just as a common pot herb is legally allowed as a substitute for the sacred soma plant when the soma is unavailable, a month can absolutely be a substitute for a year. He is brilliantly weaponizing the exact religious logic his brother holds dear to break them out of this trap.
But Bhima doesn't even stop there. He has an ultimate backup plan, which honestly provides a bit of comedic relief in this incredibly tense argument. If the king still feels that breaking his pledge is a sin, despite the 13-month loophole, Bhima offers a remarkably simple solution. Just offer some good, savory food to a quiet bull carrying sacred burdens. That's it. Feed a bull, wash the sin away, and let's get back to the business of slaughtering our enemies. It just goes to show how little regard Bhima has for the technicalities of the vow compared to the survival of his family.
Which brings us to the core of Bhima's incredible speech. Think about this. When is it right to break a sacred promise, if the promise itself guarantees your destruction? Bhima's final resounding argument to his brother is that there is absolutely no virtue higher than fighting for a Kshatriya. He completely dismantles the idea that passive suffering is inherently good. He forces us and his brother to realize that rules designed by your enemies are meant to destroy you. The ultimate moral duty is to survive, to protect your family, and to reclaim your rightful place in the world. I'm going to leave you with that provocative thought to chew on. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.